was here, she did a duet with Cathy as Barbara Streisand. You might remember that. It was a kind of an iconic moment. And,
it was an iconic moment.
Yeah, and it was a great story. And she's back for a second time, so please give it up for Sara Wolfersberger.
This is called This Could Be the Moment. I have this nagging fear that I'm going to ruin my students. You never know what moment a kid's going to remember for the rest of their lives. As a teacher, that scares the shit out of me, that I could say or do something in one passing moment that's going to change the course of their life for the worse. I mean, we hear the positive stories all the time. Those are the things that teacher in-service keynote addresses are made of. I will always remember the moment when Mrs. Smiley, that was her name, Mrs. Smiley, I'll never forget her name, said to me, "Your voice feeds the world. Without you, it will starve." And because of her words, I am a Nobel laureate today. So if it can work for the good, why wouldn't it work the other way? I mean, I'm not talking about egregious things that some people do, or even my sister's college professor who stamped boring on her first essay, and she never wrote another word in her life. He was a deliberate asshole. I'm talking about daily interactions that we average teachers might even slip and say, like, "Geez, dude, your gym shoes smell like goat manure. Please remove yourself." And the kid who drops out of 8th grade after that probably won't be giving teacher in-service keynotes, so we may never know the damage we've done. It's a legit fear. And as the world heats up in every way, and the kids get younger, and I get older, and they get squirrelier, and I get tireder, and the curriculum gets dumber, and my fuse gets shorter, and I get crankier, and then suddenly confidence and my patience and my anxiety are like swirling in this vortex, and I just can't with these kids anymore. I'm afraid that I could be the one that could haul off and upset the balance of their life is good, life is bad ledger forever. So, in search of some perspective, I decided to make a list of the first memory that popped up for me for every year of school to see what survived 5 decades. And if I did it again tomorrow, it would be a completely different list, but at least I could see how much my teachers were in my memories and whether or not I remember their names, and if I can blame or thank any of them for where I ended up. So I will share this list with you now, and we will revisit my teacher fears on the other side. So, 1st grade reading group. The teacher asked me where the story took place. I thought it was a castle because there was a picture, but I wasn't sure because my eyes had just moved over all the words, but I hadn't absorbed any of their meaning. So when she asked me, I froze. And she ultimately ended up slamming her hand down on the table and made me go out in the hall until I could figure it out. And by the time I came back in and said, "A castle?" the whole reading group was gone, and I have been a reluctant reader ever since. Although, in fairness, the fact that my eyes just moved over the words the first time may indicate that I was already on that path. And also, in fairness, similar to how my dad, all he had to do was like turn and look at me and furrow his brow, and I would start sobbing and say, "Stop yelling at me!" It is possible that the hand slamming is open for interpretation. All right, 2nd grade. Yeah, we're skipping 2nd grade. That was a wasteland. Ask me again tomorrow. 3rd grade. I missed a question on a test because I hadn't filled it in. So when I got it back, I penciled in the answer really lightly, and I showed the teacher. I said, "There was an answer there, but it was so light, maybe you just didn't see it." And Mrs. Malik pursed her lips and said, "You know better than that." I did know better, and because of her words, and probably a shit ton of Sunday school, I still know better. 4th grade. In the drinking fountain line, I asked Jill if I could touch the dimple in her chin. She also had cheek dimples. I spent a lot of time looking at her picture in the yearbook. She had a shiny black hair and a dimple right there. I just wanted to touch it. Decades later, I'd see a picture of her on Facebook with her wife. Even all those years later, I had a twinge of dimple envy. At any rate, I'm pretty sure at the time she said yes to the dimple touching. 5th grade. Our teacher was nice and fun and so pretty. I spent a lot of time looking at her picture in the yearbook. I wanted all of her attention. And we had this 15-year-old kid in our class who should have been in high school but was in our 5th grade class because of academic and behavior issues. The 70s thought that was a good idea. And the dynamic that I observed between them set my little 11-year-old brain on fire, trying to make sense of some new sensations I was experiencing that I couldn't quite put my finger on. Every day, this scene would play out between them, where the naughty student would disobey, and he'd talk back, crumple up the test, wouldn't raise his hand. And the teacher, who was usually fun and smiley, would get all strict and scary. And she would yell at the naughty student with all of her pretty attention. And she would punish him with a timeout so he could think about what he'd done. And I know this sounds weird, but sometimes it almost seemed like the student was being naughty on purpose. But that wouldn't make any sense. Let's just say my dreams that year were a tad beyond their years and helped me sort all that out. Anyway, I definitely remember her name, and I'm gonna tell you. What are you gonna do about it? 6th grade. I think I was handpicked for Mrs. Nunn's class because my 3 older siblings had had Mrs. Copeland, who was strict and scary, like not in a good way. And I told Mrs. Nunn I couldn't believe I got her, even though my siblings hadn't. And she said, like she really meant it, it was my turn. I knew that wasn't the reason, but it was nice to hear her say it. 7th grade, 2 words, Christy McNichol. Yeah, 2 of you know what I'm talking about. I spent a lot of time looking at her picture in the TV guide. 8th grade, I moved to a new state, I had no friends, I got gonged in the talent show when I wore a Little House on the Prairie dress that my mother had made, complete with a bonnet. And I recited a rhymey poem I had written about the Boston Tea Party and Johnny Tremaine, who I thought was a real person. I saw the teacher not let them gong me until I got a chance to read a little bit more of the poem. And I remember thinking, while I was praying to be swallowed by a hole in the earth, that was really nice of him. I don't remember his name. 9th grade. Was that 8th grade? Yes. 9th grade. I was the star of the school in typing. It was embarrassing. There was a giant words per minute football field on the wall, and I was beyond the 75-yard line, and the whole school was behind the 20. Instead of friends, I spent a lot of time with my mother's Selectric. And one day in class, I typed a note to my friend that the teacher was a bitch, and then I forgot it there. And the next day, she slowly approached me with a not in a good way strict and scary face, and she dropped it on my table and turned on her heel. 10th grade. Our English teacher was 100 years old. The name of this class is Comp/Lit, not Composition/Literature, Comp/Lit. Maureen and I used to always spell out the word slash on our papers, and we never got in trouble, even though Mrs. Fairhead was really mean. Wait, I'm sorry. I don't want to do that. Mrs. Fairhead, wherever you are, God probably rest your soul. I'm sorry I made a joke at your expense. I don't think you were 100, although you probably are now. I vowed when I became a teacher I would never criticize another teacher as long as I live. I am certain that there were vortexy things going on for you that we were not aware of. I hate my students a little too, now more than before. There was this thing called COVID. It's a whole story. Anyway, like you, I think I'm going to be an indelible bad memory for some of my students, and we have that in common now. And I feel closer to you. So, rest in peace, /sorry. 11th grade. I wrote my first term paper and had to give a speech about it. I voluntarily did it on a book I found at home called Is the Homosexual My Neighbor? I had my first out-of-body experience when I gave that speech. I have a vague sense my teacher was supportive. I don't remember his name. Oh, wait, I do. The issue of homosexuality, Mr. Estel, 1981. And he was supportive. Were you frustrated that there weren't more absolutes? Yes, I was. You handled well the problems involved in this type of topic. 93 out of 93. You know, we often wonder when we should have first known about ourselves, and if it hadn't been all the yearbook staring and dimple touching and teacher dreaming, you'd think it would have been this, but no. 12th grade, we did a creativity project for psychology, and I created a machine out of a box where I dropped marbles into funnels that went down and hit jars with water in them to play a song. The funnels were made of rolled up grammar worksheets, so I called the machine the Grammar Jammer. I made a conscious choice not to look at my peers while I was presenting it. But my teacher said it was one of the most creative and memorable projects he ever had, and I believed him. I forget his name. And all of that, my friends, is why I am not a Nobel laureate today. We all know that it was the whole context of masterful teaching that Mrs. Smiley did that rocketed her Nobel laureate to his purpose, and not the actual comment that she made. But for us, way more average teachers among us, our comments are pretty much all we have. And I'm a little relieved to know that they're probably not going to change the entire trajectory of my students' lives, for better or for worse, even if they remember them, or my name, or not. And while I can accept that my influence is more like a Dixie cup in the ocean than Mrs. Smiley's white light of God, whatever, I still want to have the most positive relationships that I can, even on my vortexy days, because this could be the moment. So every morning, the first thing I do when I think of their little faces is throw up a little prayer to the goddesses. If I'm going to be present for one of their indelible moments, please, in the name of all of the teachers who shaped me into who I am, including one whose name we won't specify because she's the answer to a security question on my bank account, please help me make the indelible moment a good one. Can I get an amen?